You are now experiencing the digital life with Kevin Lockett.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Digital Life. On today's show, I'll talk to Arabella DeLucco, Executive Director of Girl Dev Week. I came across Arabella while scrolling through the Consumer Electronics Show's hashtags on Twitter, and she gave a very thought-provoking take on CES. Her tweet was so cool and contrarian to all the other CES tweets that I had to reach out to her for the show. Along with CES, Arabella and I discussed the problems of dumping electronic goods in her birthplace of the Philippines, her early days as a webcaster, leading Girl Dev Week in San Francisco, and her take on Stephen Hawking's thoughts on artificial intelligence, which scared the heck out of me. So without further ado, here's my conversation with the very insightful Arabella DeLucco.
Okay, we're talking to Arabella DeLucco. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So the reason I reached out to you was because I saw a tweet from you about CES. But I have to ask you about another tweet that I saw. Prior to that. So you're a former journalist. You work in the newsroom. Yet you are not a fan of HBO's The Newsroom.
Yes, I am not. I couldn't bear watching it.
So since you actually worked in the newsroom, what's the biggest gripe you had about Aaron Sorkin's show?
Well, I thought that they were all babies in the newsroom. And I just thought that, first of all, his female characters aren't great. And I have seen some things about why he doesn't create very strong women roles. But I'm really not sure about I haven't delved deep enough in that topic because I don't really like him that much. I did like The Social Network, but I don't like any of his other work, especially The Newsroom. So I just think that his style of writing, the walk and talk that he is so proud to, which is what he does, and he's so proud to call it that, is actually gets in the way of the storytelling. And whenever you just say, my style is this way and my storyline has to fit into that style, I think that limits you as an artist. And it also limits you from expanding your repertoire or your skill as a writer and storyteller.
So what made you get into journalism early on?
Okay, so I got into journalism because I thought that I was going to get into television news. And then I did an experiment one day. I was 17 years old, and I just watched television news all day. And I started realizing that I didn't really like the content of local TV. And when I was in college, I took English and political science because I thought the communication classes weren't as challenging, and I really enjoyed political science and literature. So in college, instead of doing a comm with journalism undergrad, I decided to get as much experience on the ground. So I interned for News 12 New Jersey, for a Diversity Inc. magazine. I was a content developer for a few travel sites, including uktravel.com. And then eventually I interned at ABC The View and also had my first real gig as a newspaper reporter at the Home News Tribune, which is still a Gannett-owned newspaper. And out of all this experience on the ground as a journalist, my favorite was being a newspaper reporter. And I realized that because that and also the View. The View was pretty fun. But I just realized that it was because I was really able to connect with the subject matter, and there was just more room to expand into it. And I love the feature writing of that kind of journalism. So that's how I got into it, and realized that local news wasn't really my thing.
You had a quote which I loved, which is something that I've always been this way too. You basically said, "I never stop gathering and sharing stories of other people." Yes,
I think that it's really important to be able to share that. I think that the internet, and I think what you're doing also, podcasting, is excellent, and you ask really great questions, and it shows that it feeds my curiosity. I don't know if anybody else really watched my interviews that of, all of these visionaries and entrepreneurs and leaders out there. It certainly doesn't get like millions of views like the newsroom does, right? But it definitely helped me connect a lot of things in my life whenever I would sit down and talk to somebody and interview them and gather their stories. And so I think that it's a very personal, at the end of it all, I realized that it was more of a personal, inspirational type of thing. And if other people get inspired by it, great. But really, I was doing it for myself because I was naturally curious. It was a way for me to develop myself as a person more.
I always enjoy talking to early adopters of social media. In 2007, you started Business Boomer. Yeah. So what was that like back in 2000? Yeah, I do some deep research. So
you're amazing.
I know. So I always enjoy talking to people who were really part of social media before everyone else caught on. So what was that like doing webcasts and interviewing people when people weren't really on the social media bandwagon yet?
Kevin, I didn't know it then. I thought I wasn't doing anything special. And then when people started talking to me, and now looking back, I realized that I really was an early adopter. I mean, I still kick myself in the butt for not having @Arabella on Twitter when I was on Twitter early on. And so back then when I started it, I was just doing it because it was just a natural way for me to, it was part of my discovery phase, right? So I was really, again, I'm a naturally curious person. So I started it because it was like, well, why wouldn't I do this so easily with a friend of mine who has a video camera, and we can edit it so cheaply, put it online for no money, and then just do all these things, get access to people. Why wouldn't we do this? Why do I need to work for a newspaper or to work for a large television station when I can have all the control I want and I can still reach these highly influential people? And to me, it was a no-brainer. My only fault was that I didn't realize how special it was until now, and I wish that I had consistently or continued with the same idea all the way through, and that was my problem, right? It was more of I get interested in something, and then I would just get tired of it, and I would move on to the next topic or move on to the next group of people. And because Business Boomer was specifically about business entrepreneurship, and then it moved into more of social entrepreneurship, that kind of idea, because I was part of the Drucker Society in LA. It just kept on snowballing into different directions, and I wasn't really quite sure what my expertise was. And if anything, I look back at it and I thought, well, I should have just stuck it out, because then maybe it would be different now. But then I think about it and I say, you know what? I still have all those skills, and I still met all those people, and now I'm still able to bring it back to what I'm doing today, and I wouldn't change it any other way.
Yeah, that's the blessing and the curse of being creative. On one hand, you're really creative and you like to create, but on the other hand, you get bored. You feel like, I've been doing this for a while and I want to try something new.
Yeah. It's just, and it's hard, right? Because you've put in a lot of effort into something. And this is where, to be honest with you, moving to San Francisco 6 years ago, I never thought of myself as a marketer. But then when I moved to San Francisco, the only jobs I could get was as a marketer. Even my journalism turned into content marketing, and I didn't even realize it when I did that. I was able to build my business to a pretty, decent revenue for a one-woman show in 2010, but it was so tiring, right? Because I was doing basically not really my content. I was doing the content for an organization or a company that was paying me to do the content, which is a great idea. But then I just felt as an artist, as a creator, I didn't have as much leeway to be creative. and maybe that's just an excuse, but it's just, it was a lot. It was very jarring for me to realize that my skill set was monetizable and monetizable through marketing, and yet I didn't want to be a marketer because I prided myself as a journalist, and that was a big hurdle to get over. But yet, at the end of the day, if you want to be paid as a content producer or content creator or as a content creative, you have to know marketing, or you have to set up distribution channels, because that's the only way anybody's ever going to pay you for your content is if that content is able to get eyeballs.
It seems like people look at marketing and journalism as the same thing, and that's just two totally different skill sets. Even though you're a content producer, your mind as a journalist works differently as a mind of a marketer. And marketers have their own set skill sets that works for them. They're more on the selling side. They're creative, but they're on the selling side, where journalism is about the content. And you want that space to play around and create in that box.
Yes, definitely. And recently I've just been going with a sort of my gut and my moral values type of idea whenever I put out and curate content, even just for social media. I started just learning to trust my instincts and my experience to back those instincts. I would try not to dwell on whether or not people will like it. I just try to figure out whether or not I think it's valuable. And if I think it's valuable, I'll put it out there. But if I don't think it's valuable, then I'm not going to put it out there. So I just self-editorialize what I put out there now, even in short form, 140 character post on Twitter.
And speaking of those 140 characters, which is the reason I wanted to talk to you. So I was following CES. I've never been to CES before, but I follow it every year. So I'm scrolling down, looking at different gadgets. And then I came across your tweet, which is really interesting. And you said, this is the first and the last time at CES, all I could think about was how much electronic waste we have in this world. And I said, wow, that's a contrarian type ideal, but I dig it. And I wanted to talk to you about this to kind of flesh this out, because you can't explain everything what you meant in 140 characters.
No.
But yeah, tell me about that experience going to CES.
Well, again, right, I'm now, I've come to the point in my life and in my career where I've learned to just trust my instinct more and listen to my gut. I recently finished a book called Art and Fear, and one of the things about it is well, first of all, the general premise of the book is to just get you as an artist, as a creator, to keep on creating art and not be fixated on the perfection of that piece of work that you're doing. Just get into the habit of creating art. And then in one of the things that I actually posted on my Goodreads and tweeted out was that one of the things you should learn as an artist is to notice what you notice, and you need to say, oh, well, that's odd. Why do I feel that way? Or why does that thing right there, why does it stick out to me? And then you can comment on that, and that's what makes you more insightful and also helps you grow as an artist. So when I went into CES and I finally was able to get a badge, I only was there for about 20 minutes because I couldn't handle all of the electricity around me. It was a weird feeling I had never experienced at any conference I've ever been to before. And then it was just because I was surrounded by all these monitors and then all of these devices, and I kept on thinking, how many TV screens do you really need? How many LED screens do you really need in your life? I mean, this is not, electronic daisy conference installation, right? Like when you go into like an event, and there's like a big installation, that's kind of cool. It's artistic and it's interesting, especially if there's great visual content that's being streamed through there. But if it's consumer electronics, and so these are things that are made for consumers, which is the mass market. And I think about all of these, like even the little devices, right, the wearables. I just don't understand if we really need all these things. And to me, I think that what we really need is just one device to rule them all as a consumer. I mean, even laptops, people aren't on the web. It's all about the mobile web right now because everyone's on mobile. And rich or poor, you can get people through mobile. And I think that's an interesting case. I also think that it's interesting because I heard an NPR interview with Alan Murphy from Fortune magazine. And what he said, what he noticed at CES was that when he interviewed other people or, attendees of CES, they said that they didn't want wearables or these devices. What they wanted was just a way to plug in, get a better battery life on their phone. And I think that that's something that we're going to start realizing. I mean, where are all of this device? Now that you're getting a device every year, every 2 years out of, all the big makers, right, like Apple and Samsung, and you want to upgrade to an iPhone 6. What happens to that old device? Yes, you can give it back to them, but really what happens to that? Like, how many phones really do get recycled? We don't have a lot of space on this planet, and in fact, it's the second largest garbage dump is in the Philippines, where I was born, and that makes me so upset. And I think that what has happened in the food industry, where we're now cracking down on GMOs and pesticide use and so forth, is going to happen with electronics, consumer electronics, because we just can't keep on being this way anymore. We can't keep on polluting our planet and just for our own egos, just because we want the best devices. And I think that companies need to shift their thinking instead of having always all these upgrades on your iOS, because now you're on your iPhone 6 instead of your iPhone 5. When it's still a completely fine phone, but then it makes your phone, and I don't, this is not technical, right? I'm just saying, this is just an example. And I mean, it happened to my husband, who went from an iPhone 4 to an iPhone 6, but he was in his 4. He takes care of things very well, and his 4 was fine until it had to get all these iOS changes in the phone, and I just think that's wrong. I think that's backwards. I don't think that pushes innovation. I think that makes things, I think that's very wasteful of us. And we need to use innovation to think smartly and more efficiently. And that's how we're going to advance as a species.
How does the effect of the computers and all these electronics being dumped into the Philippines, how has that affected the people there?
I know the founder of one of the nonprofit organizations there, Father Benigno, and he has written about this dump in the Philippines. And I think his book is called Smoky Mountains. And I don't know. I haven't done enough research about it. But basically what has happened is that, people live on this mound of garbage. Like, it's a mountain. And there are children being born on this mountain, and that's where they live. I can't imagine what that would be like. I can't. And I would like to go back to the Philippines more. And one of my dreams is to actually connect Silicon Valley to the Philippines more and provide, get people in the Philippines trained on more technical education programs. And so, I would love to go there and check it out myself, because I think that you don't really realize it until you see it.
I think, to go back to your earlier point, there is too much consumerism. So I think we're just so wired that we need less gadgets and more interaction and we can get more in touch with nature and that whole thing.
I think so. I think that it's, how there's a movement, actually, Rhode Island School of Design is trying to put an A on STEM, right? So it's now STEAM, because the whole arts movement, they feel that it's also important for us to not forget that the arts are very much like humanizing a lot of the things that is happening in this world now. And I think that's what separates humans from machine. I also tweeted about Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk signing a document about calling for some sort of statute for guidelines for AI, right, artificial intelligence, because they said that if we're not careful, we can create something that would actually could destroy our human race. It could become smarter, especially if you're looking into creating sort of like half human, half machine type of things. I think that we need to make sure that we're not so technology dependent, that we do need to realize the human side, what makes us special as humans, and I think that has a lot to do with things that we can't replicate on machines, right? I mean, there's like love, there's appreciation for art, or machines can communicate to each other now. So it really is. We have to kind of always think about our unique value proposition and not get so dependent on these devices or on technology. Even though I work really heavily in technology, I really do think that there's something there where we need to remember that we are human, and what is it that we can do to make ourselves, like, remember that.
Exactly. So let's lighten the mood a bit, because you got me really scared.
I'm so sorry.
But you're right.
I've been reading a lot of stuff.
Well, I know, but people laugh off artificial intelligence, but it's true. Like, eventually, I think people see something like Terminator and it's like, oh, and that's fantasy. But no, if things start progressing, Siri will continue to mutate and grow, and Siri can become an actual thing and there's a whole team of Siris that they can kind of communicate with each other. So I think the Joaquin Phoenix film was exactly about that. Where it's like she left him to go with another AOI, artificial intelligence. So yeah, I love that movie. But let's talk about Girl Dev Week. So I never heard of Girl Dev Week, but it's really cool. It sounds like a really cool thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's our first year, but Developer Week has been going on for 3 years now here in San Francisco. So Girl Dev Week is part of Developer Week, which is the largest full stack conference in San Francisco. And Girl Dev Week was co-created with me and the CEO of Developer Week, because we felt that it's important to put it out there and to actually welcome women developers into our community, because we found that a lot of technology conferences don't have women. And it's not necessarily because they don't want women there, but it's because they have a hard time reaching women. So when we co-created Girl Dev Week, we decided that it needs to be within Developer Week, and it's specifically curated for women developers. So what you'll see is like week-long event series, there's parties in there. We're throwing one where Pandora's the entertainment sponsor, and we're having it at Yelp. So that's really exciting. And then we also have panels of women, and some are not all women either, because I do believe in like diversity thinking, right, within small groups and businesses. There's studies that show that 50-50 small business groups actually make the most impact. So I like this idea of showing a sort of welcoming, like open arms to the community, male or female, and say, hey, let's get together and let's address issues that aren't being addressed at other tech conferences. A lot of professional development for women developers there's not a lot of content out there for them. And there's a lot of content for professional development, like on LinkedIn. Everything is about professional development, but specifically the things that highly technical women go through. For example, the imposter syndrome, where they feel like they're not good enough, or the fact that when they were younger, they didn't even realize it was something they could do. I was just talking to a good friend of mine I've known for many years, and she's a front-end developer at CrowdRise. And yesterday she said when she first started a couple of years ago, there was nothing out there for her to really kind of sink her teeth into and self-learn. So she found that she had to go back and take classes because she couldn't do it on her own. And she said that a lot of her peers who are women developers felt the same way. Like they don't know where to go in terms of learning these skills because they just found out that they can do it. She has a friend who's an attorney who's just learning how to code through General Assembly. An attorney, right? So you know that this woman is a very smart woman, but she realized just recently that she can do computer programming. And now she's learning that and she's enjoying it a lot more. And I think that that's really what we're here to do, is just to show people that there are opportunities out there. And I'm all about, hey, if it's for you, why shouldn't you know that you can do it? And I don't want to exclude men either. That's why it's within Developer Week, because we do have a 20,000 developer network within San Francisco, and we want to include men in the conversation. And we feel that it's important because if you're a woman and you're going into a predominantly male technical team, you're going to want to be able to work with them. And if there's an issue, you should be able to communicate with your colleague, male or female. So it's not just like Girl Dev Week is just for girls. It's really just so that we can address specific issues for highly technical women when it comes to career development and workplace issues.
What do you think is the biggest misperception about women when it comes to tech? Because I'm always fascinated when I look at the stats, and there's a lot more women in tech than there used to be, but I'm always shocked when I hear people recruiting for different companies say, well, we can't find women or we can't find minorities. And it's I'm always scratching my head at this, especially like in California where there's so many different types of people. But what do you think are the biggest misperceptions when it comes to women in tech?
So we just did a report, a diversity report that we presented last month, and one of the things that I noticed is that, or what we noticed as we were doing this report, is that you'll see 30-70 split among tech companies in terms of 30% women, 70% males, across the board for like Facebook, Twitter, Apple. They're kind of similar, right? 70-30 split. But then when you get into the software developers, like technical departments, you'll start seeing that go 85-15. That's a huge swing, right? And yet, what I've noticed is that we also did our own survey, and we realized that it's not because these companies are refusing to hire women developers. We've realized that they want to, they just don't know how. So it doesn't start necessarily, it doesn't really need to start within the actual organization or company themselves. Like, for example, it's not a social justice issue, right? I don't think that it's these companies and these startups are specifically saying, we don't want to hire women. It's true, it's hard for them to find them. It's hard for them to find minorities. What is happening is that the talent pools need to get more diversified. They need to get in front of talent pools that are that have women in them. The candidates themselves need to be able to feel okay to applying for their technical positions. And that's where we started thinking, that's interesting. That's where all of our community partners are. You're looking at Half-Bright, which is a coding school for women. You're looking at General Assembly, which is also a technical school with month-long classes. Half-Bright is more of a 3-month boot camp. But General Assembly, from what I hear, it has a pretty good 60-40 ratio in terms of 60% women. So you're seeing that these schools actually attract women who want to learn. And so now from there, they can start getting into the candidate pool. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon. And I think that's where we can, as community organizers, focus instead of like berating tech companies or the tech industry for not hiring enough women. Let's instead look at a more practical and pragmatic solution and help expand the talent pools through excellent programs and excellent organizations and community models. That's what I think is where we can achieve success. And plus, I don't even like blaming anybody, right? I don't want to blame the tech sector for anything because they do good work. It's just let's just help everybody, right? Rising tides rise all boats. That's the kind of idea here.
Wow. Well, Arabella DeLucco, thank you for the conversation and keep up the good fight out there in San Francisco.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You should come to Developer Week and Girl Dev Week. I'll give you a bus pass.
Oh, yeah, well, that's nice. When is it?
It's on February 6th to the 12th.
I don't think I can make it.
Okay, well, we'll be doing a lot more stuff, so.
If you're not, feel bad. See,
don't feel bad.
No, because I would have been saving. If I knew I would have had a free pass, I would have been saving my little pennies and saving my money for a ticket after this. Yeah, man. I would like to get out in San Francisco. There's a lot of great things out there, and you guys doing a lot of great work out there. And there's so many people to talk to. There's so many people interested.
So many. There's so many people here. And such great brains. They're so interesting here. I've lived in many cities, and San Francisco is really hot right now, and I'm very lucky to be part of all of it.
Well, if people want to find out more about you and also Girl Dev Week, where can they go?
They can go to girldevweek.com, and we're making some great announcements with the Girl Dev initiative. And you can just find me on Twitter at Arabella DeLucco.
We're going to have to do a part 2 because I still need to talk to you about Stiff Women, Richard Branson.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much, but we went into artificial intelligence that got scared.
I'm so sorry about it.
I need to get off the phone. It's a good conversation. No, I think these discussions need to be made because I don't think people really understand like how fast technology is really moving. Like technology is moving really fast. I don't think people really understand that.
So fast, and it's insane. And thank you for doing what you do. Happy to talk again.
All right. Thanks, Arabella.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye, Kevin.
I want to thank Arabella DeLucco for being a great guest on The Digital Life. Make sure you follow her at Arabella DeLucco. That's Arabella DeLucco on Twitter. And be sure to learn more about Girl Dev Week at girldevweek.com. Before I go, I have a Twitter question for you. Going back to how pained Arabella was about electronic goods being dumped in the Philippines. Tweet me at Kevin Lockett and tell me, how do you dispose of your electronic goods? Use the hashtag DumpKL. That's the hashtag DumpKL. And tell me, how do you dispose of your mobile devices, computers, and tablets when they are no longer useful? All right, everybody. It's The Digital Life. I'm Kevin Lockett, and I'm out.
The Digital Life with Kevin Lockett.